Can't do anything without Gmail.
Yeah, Mantle.
It won't let me do anything. I can't delete anything. I tried to get somebody to fix it.
I haven't driven up on that.
I have another account on there.
And we're not rushed, so.
One of that, and I like to do it.
So
Get it?
I lost it because I couldn't post anything on it.
Right.
So I guess I just need
Of the
to.
projections depend on the assumptions, it's like all math problems.
Yeah.
The answer you get depends on what you put in the variables.
That's why.
Yeah, right, and
You
the
put that
warrant is that what you?
Can you send it to her?
Yeah, I think I should.
Where will I? And I just. Now my Gmail account won't let me do anything, with it. I can't delete anything, I can't do anything.
To me, the more interesting one is this one.
Right, I sent that, so.
Yeah. Of course, the school one.
Right.
Mine doesn't, mine, is it broken?
My
No, it
Gmail
won't.
account is really rough.
I can open things and read them and everything, but if I don't.
It's interesting to see the articles in
Yeah.
the village.
We'll hit delete,
Yeah.
and it comes to delete
It's
this.
taking some heat.
Good reason, it's absurd. Although we were talking about this.
Yeah.
And
He played with it, plays
for the comp plan folks and Leticia being here. And so.
So he opened up the.
Because I was just saying, how could you not realize
I find
you were
that hard.
self-perpetuating board, and before people went off, you had ensured you were gonna still have work, But she said the problem was there were not people willing to build seats. That was part of that issue.
Yeah.
And they should, yeah.
Yeah.
But just still, I would think you try and get people to stay on or something to avoid the crisis they've had. It's ridiculous. All right, well, it's 6:00. Let's call the meeting to order and start. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Does anybody have a conflict of interest regarding anything on our agenda for tonight? No. Okay. Did people have a chance to review the minutes of the very brief December 20th?
Yeah, they would love it.
I know the minutes are almost as long as the meeting was, right? Did we have any changes to those? No, okay. Somebody want to make a motion that we adopt those?
I'll make a motion that we adopt those minutes.
Okay, all in favor? That's 5. Thank you. Communications received by the town manager and any select board members to share.
I've received some communications with some, curiosity around the open space plan and what its intent and goals and, charge are and how it will sort of prioritize properties or not. So, I'm sure that as part of the committee's plan is to do some public outreach about it, some regulations and listening, but I think it would be warranted based on, there's both a lot of interest and questions around it. And then I've received just a lot of communications around our tax acquired properties. We have 2 that are going on the market soon. And so I think folks have caught wind of that and called with, many questions about it. They're not yet listed, but I know that Karen Rizcala is working on it and has been in communication with Bill Kelly. The listings are a bit trickier, obviously, as because they're tax acquired, but those will be on the market in the near future. 2 properties are going up for sale.
What roads are they on?
Klein Road and Ridge Road.
Okay.
And then 4 others were resolved. And so there were 6 that were over the sort of 5-year window. And those were the first 6 that we were going to focus on. So once these 2 sell, we will be up to date. There will still be some on the list, but we wait until they've been tax acquired for 5 years before putting them on the market. At least historically, that could change when our list isn't so long. But you can essentially file an appeal in the first 5 years. And so we decided to first focus on the ones where that has already lapsed.
Seems logical.
Didn't you have some that were like 19 years?
16, I believe. Yeah.
But
And that
those,
one is all paid up and current. Wow.
that's good.
Yeah.
I did have a communication from somebody who wanted to urge us to consider more programming for seniors, including a community center. And I thought that we'll be talking about the Snows Point Lodge, but I do think it would be useful to sort of consolidate somewhere the different programs in town that support seniors, both from the town officially and the CDC, so that there was a list that people could look at. I'll encourage people to lobby for more programming of whatever type they want. Obviously, to build a community center would be a big capital campaign and property tax commitment. So I don't know how that would work, but I'm just sharing that for people to be aware of it. So the warrant that Irene sent us, I had questions. So on the last page of that, Irene, you have the Gulf of Maine Research Institute. And it says that's grant money. Is that money that came in or went out?
That is money that. Well, the money's been spent. And I believe that is one that the money came in first. And we're spending the money now.
Did the money come from the Gulf of Maine Research Institute?
No. Because the Mid-Coast Council Governments, that money that's coming from the same grant.
So do you know what that is then, Susie?
It's not me.
Okay. So we got a grant and then from the grant, we're
spending the money.
dispersing money to MCOG
Yes,
and we're dispersing money to GMRI.
right.
What did GMRI do for this money?
Is that for the community resilience plan, GNR?
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay. All right, so it is part of that somehow. But it seems like Susie would know that.
It does. I wonder if it's something with Herring Gut. Herring Gut's also doing,
So they're like the subcontractor or something?
Well, there's a testing program, a water testing program, and that, I don't know this, but this may be lab result tests that somebody's paying for.
Yeah, I know GMRI is doing that.
and they're
but I
doing
think-
it through Herring Gut.
And they're doing it with grant money, which I didn't know
I
that.
believe so.
Okay. All right, well, maybe we can clear that up. It's not like I think we shouldn't be doing it, but I wasn't aware of the town having relationships with them or them requesting money from us or anything.
We'll follow up on with
Okay.
more specifics.
And then at the bottom two, St. Anselm College and University of New Hampshire, are those scholarships being paid to scholarship recipients?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Two of the Olson Scholarship awards have submitted requests, and we're sending money to the college for those two students.
These were folks that were awarded the scholarship last spring, and they have to submit their semester one transcripts, and so they've done that, and now we.
Pay the college. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, they were pretty generous awards.
Yes, I
Right.
see that. That's great. The two that are listed are $7,000, just so that
Very
each,
Cool.
yeah, so that people know that. Did anybody else have any questions?
No, it just occurred to me that we could turn out streetlights and save money.
Where's it
It's a
coming
thought.
from? Okay. So
Dark
in-
skies.
Oh, I see. And that.
There are other
case-
folks who are requesting more streetlights in parts of town.
More. We have both factions in town, don't we?
Typically, always.
Democracy in action. All right, then we have a consensus that we will disperse pursuant to this warrant, $702,358.42. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, we will sign that for you, Irene. Thank you for answering your questions. Do we have any public comments from anybody on Zoom?
Nice to see Van.
Yes. Anybody in the room have public comments? We can obviously we're gonna have opportunities to talk about the things on the agenda here shortly. So the next thing we'll do is Ann Matlack has graciously agreed to be here tonight. I feel like we in St. George are very fortunate to have her serving on the Taxation and Finance Committee in the legislature. And this is your last year in that.
In the house, yes.
In the House, so I wanted us to take advantage of her knowledge and expertise and take the opportunity to lobby for any tax policy changes any of us have come up with. And I asked Dan if we could start with sort of an overview, because I know a lot of people read the select board minutes and watch our YouTube videos. And this is a chance for people to understand a little bit about how Maine raises taxes and spends money from taxes. So if you can just give people a little overview of that, and then we can talk about, are you willing to do that?
Oh, well, yeah, that's a very broad topic, so let me see if I can,
I mean, we can all chime in.
yes. Okay, so the state valuation process, that begins at the state level, obviously, and it eventually trickles down to you folks, but what happens is that the state develops valuations for the individual municipalities. And that's what the towns need to abide by when they're creating their mill rates and so forth. Well, first of all, the town comes up with their budget, and they determine what the mill rate is. But they also have to meet the threshold of the state where they need to excuse me. Let's see. Well, what they do is come up with a statewide assessment based on the individual communities. And so the town has to meet certain thresholds. You need to be at 90% of what the state believes your assessment should be. When the town develops its assessment or reports it to the state, it needs to be at least 90%. They like you to be closer to 100. They don't like you to go too far over 100 either. But if you are not within 90%, that means that you get less money for homestead exemptions and a lot of the other programs that are out there. So you want to stay with about 90%. And the state will determine what that is and then let you know what it is. So then the town develops their budget. They figure out what it is, and then they figure out what the mill rate is, and they apply the mill rate to the valuation of the individual properties so that the funds that are raised will be able to pay for the town operating expenses. And that's what it is the town operating expenses.
And just to jump in,
Sure.
this is the reason we're doing our revaluation
Right.
in the next year or so,
Mhm.
because the state believes that we're under 60% of, isn't that right?
Not exact. So the 90% goal, I believe, is more of an aspirational goal. They start withholding homestead exemption, free growth, et cetera, when you dip below 70%. We're at 63% currently.
Mhm.
And so are projecting to see less income from the state this year, less revenue from the state this year than in previous years.
Right.
So, but in the meantime, until we have a revaluation, the state is nevertheless coming up with a ballpark figure that it believes is the value of all properties in St. George bundled together.
Right.
And that state valuation that they have number that they've put on all the properties in town together is about $1.4 billion.
Okay.
And so using that figure, that dictates a lot of what kind of money our town gets for our school,
Okay.
and
Revenue share.
revenue
Very, very,
sharing.
yeah.
And the revenue sharing money is money from the state that comes from sales taxes and income taxes, right?
Right, there's a whole list of those taxes that are part of it. Hold on a second. I'll tell you what they are. Hold on, oops. Yes, there are, it's oh, wait a second, it's here. I had it right here. It is sales taxes and let me see if I can find that really quickly.
While you're
Yeah.
looking,
Yeah.
I just thought it was important for people to know that the sales taxes that are raised, like when you pay tax at the general store, for example, that doesn't come to St. George.
No, it doesn't.
That goes to the state, into the state's pot of money. And then because we're a property rich, our properties are very valuable because we have 125 miles of coastline. Irene just checked this the other day. Last year, we got $256,000 from the state.
Okay, total.
In revenue sharing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, so the point of all of this being basically that for almost everything that we're going to pay for in St. George, the school and the town, having roads plowed, paying Brandon's salary, a Parks and Rec program, almost all of that money is coming from our property taxes, not some
Correct.
other place.
What other place?
No, not some other place.
Right.
Like sales taxes or income taxes that we're paying.
No, the sales and income tax go directly to the state and they redistribute it back to the individual municipalities with revenue sharing. So that's something to find. But there are and revenue sharing is distributed monthly. And it's not as if this town is put upon. You make it sound like like it's such a rich town that they don't get any money. They do get money, but there's only so much that can go around. So they do get the sales tax, the income tax. Schools get certain funding from certain pots of money also, like some of the boat registrations and things like that. Those go into the school, and 55% of the total cost of education statewide is paid for by the state based on certain funding formulas. Not 55% of St. George and not 55% of Cushing or anything like that, but 55% of the statewide cost of education value based on a specific funding formula.
Right, but again, because St. George's valuation is high, which is a mixed bag. I mean, that's kind of why we're talking about that. I believe that only less than 5% of our schools spending comes from the state. Again, almost all of that is coming from our local property taxes.
Right. And the town of St. George chose to go alone. So the town of St. George several years ago decided that they would pay for the education of their K-8 students plus the high school students. So this is something that the town took on. So if you feel it's too high, then that's something that the town agreed to several years ago.
So, I know there in the media, there have been a lot of different opinion pieces and back and forth about property taxes.
Yeah.
You're serving on
Yes.
a commission or a committee that's looking at different tax reforms.
It's a task force, actually.
Okay.
And it has a really wonderful name, and that is the Real Estate Property Tax Relief Task Force. So what we're doing is over the course of, we're about halfway there. Our final report is due in December of next year. What we're doing is reviewing property taxes here in the state of Maine and seeing what impacts different aspects of municipal government, county government, state government are having on property tax and property values, and seeing if there are ways that the state and municipalities and counties can mitigate some of those expenses that are coming down to the municipalities. Making suggestions, perhaps creating some pieces of legislation. But yes, we are reviewing that.
And do you have a few things that you're focusing on that you could share, even though you're not done and you haven't written a report or anything?
Well, what I wanted to tell you was about some of the programs that are already in place.
Okay.
And I'm sure that you people already know about those, but they're right now, yeah. Oh, here's revenue sharing. Yeah. So we have the homestead exemption. We have a veterans exemption, so all veterans. And it's a scaled exemption. So depending on the disability of the various veterans, they will have an exemption. There's an exemption for the blind. There's a renewable energy equipment exemption, state property tax deferral program, and a property tax fairness credit, which is some of these programs are available when you file your taxes. So that's an issue for some seniors who don't file taxes, some people who have low incomes who don't file taxes. So if you file taxes using computer programs, they will automatically populate those fields that you apply, that apply to you. So you could get some of these programs. But people have to register for homestead exemption and veterans exemptions and so forth. So that's what we have as far as the residential relief programs are. We also have, we've been talking about some things, such as expanding some of those programs, making them, expanding the property tax fairness credit, giving folks a higher threshold. We don't want to have a cliff so that people get it and all of a sudden they don't get it. So we have an increased schedule for something like that. We have been expanding the homestead exemption. It's now up to 75%, 76% reimbursable by the state for people here. And there's the state tax deferral program. Is that it? No, that's not it. There is a program for offered through the state for those people whose properties have liens or are facing liens. In the past, if you had a lien on your property, you didn't qualify, but now you do, and you would work with the state, not necessarily the town. The town has an abatement process, but this is something where if you want to retain your property, but you can't pay your taxes, you come to an agreement with the state and they pay your property taxes for you. And eventually when your property is passed along to your heirs or you sell it, then the state will get the money back that it invested in your property. So that's something else that's also available out there.
So is that the only deferral program or is there a deferral program?
There's a-
for-
The property tax fairness credit. And that comes through your income tax. So if you are someone who has a relatively modest income, then, let's see, over the 2023 tax period, the threshold has been reduced to 4%. And the maximum tax credit has increased to $1,000 for taxpayers under 65 years old and $1,500 for people above 65 years old. So this is funding that you can get back through your taxes.
And that's not a refundable credit, is it, Ann?
No, it's not a refund. It's,
So like if you don't have to file a tax return, it's not worth filing a tax return.
yes, it is.
Oh,
Oh, yeah,
so it
I'm
is a
sorry. It is a refundable
A
tax credit.
refundable.
It's a refundable credit. So,
Okay.
so even if you don't owe taxes, you'll get the money back.
So you could, file your tax return and you'll
And
get a refund.
you would get-
Even though you had nothing in.
Right. It's like the earned income tax credit.
Yeah,
You know, people at the lower end of, when they file their taxes, even if they haven't paid that much into the tax system, they can still get back more based on how much they would have paid in rent, how much they would have paid in childcare and so forth. So there is a credit there. This is the state's effort at tax credits like that. The property tax fairness credit. So if you file your taxes, you get it back.
These various programs, and where does the funding come from? What's the source of the funding so that the state can make these programs happen?
It's from the general fund, mostly,
Which means that it comes from
all taxation.
all-
Sales taxes and
Jax.
general
income
fund.
tax.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
think it's-
The expanding the tax loan to pay
Mhm.
for seniors to
Right.
pay their property taxes, you were going to expand it to cover folks that had liens on their property.
Yes, yeah.
Is there? I know of one situation that unfortunately the property is tax acquired now.
Oh dear,
Um,
you might try.
and I was just wondering if it might be worth that person's time to try to
Yeah.
go for that program anyway, because they have no other resources.
They
They've
can always
exhausted them.
try. They can always try. It had been that if you couldn't have a lien on your property in order to qualify for the program. Now they're saying you can have a lien. I don't know whether it goes to tax acquired or not, but you can always try.
Okay.
They're trying not to take people's property.
Yeah, well, we don't want the person's property. They're still living there.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
please contact Maine Revenue Services.
Jane, would this be a good time
Yeah.
to present my proposal?
Well, certainly to raise an issue generally. We gotta figure out how deep you wanna go. That's the only question.
I need a few minutes.
Yeah,
because I have
sure.
a concrete one-page proposal how to change that program. It has two flaws.
Which program is that?
The deferred revenue, the deferred the state property tax deferral program.
Oh, I don't.
That's
think
the
we
one
have
you mentioned.
That I tried not to mention that one.
That's where the state pays the town the property tax for people who qualify for that.
No, that's no longer in place. That started a couple of years ago?
No, that's
It's a
That's
different
something-
one than the one you're thinking of,
Yeah.
the one
that was
for seniors.
Mhm.
That
Was up for about a year and then went away.
Right, that they-
Not that.
Not that
The
one.
new
Not that.
But
Okay,
there's
yes.
a new one.
Okay,
There's a new one here on this, described in this bulletin.
tax deferral program. Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
So, you want to,
Sure, go ahead.
so with our revaluation, there's a lot of concern in this town that some people might be taxed out of their homes because they might increase a lot and they are retired and
Mhm,
don't have a salary to compensate with.
mhm.
And this is why this deferral program is there, which is a great tool. But it has two flaws, I think. It has two financial criteria, and your annual income must be below 80,000, which I think makes sense. And there's a second criterion that your assets, your liquid assets, have to be below 150,000. And this does not make sense. when we work and we build our nest egg, the entire retirement planning says build a nest egg and withdraw when you retire 4% per year to make sure it lasts for your lifetime. So 4% of these 150,000 allowed assets is 6,000.
Okay,
So take two neighbors. Neighbor A has a social security, both retired, has 40,000 social security and has 150,000 assets. So this across the board has put it in a savings account. So he has available in practice 40,000 plus 4% of 150,000. So in total, 46,000.
okay,
So, but he doesn't qualify, although he's way below the 80,000, he doesn't qualify because the asset is just 150,000. It's too high. Take his neighbor B. He
okay,
has a 40,000 social security too. He has a corporate pension from his time working for a corporation of, let's say, 30,000.
okay,
And he has a savings account of 100,000. So his available income is 70,000 official, his income is 70,000 plus 4,000 realistic withdrawal from his savings, 74,000. He qualifies and he can participate in the program. His poorer neighbor cannot and may have to move out of his house.
okay,
So that's the first flaw. And I'm proposing, instead of taking asset as such, to take the withdrawal rates. So I'm kind of defining, well, it's a big word, available income, which is the annual income as per this program, plus 4% of the total liquid assets available to the household.
okay.
You add these two numbers and they are addable. I'm a physicist by education. You cannot add assets. You cannot add assets and income. You have to find a formula to translate it, and it's the withdrawal rate.
Withdrawal rate, okay,
So that fixes that problem.
okay,
There's a second flaw. The way assets are defined.
okay,
The assets, according to this program, exclude IRAs, individual retirement accounts. So assume neighbor A, in our case, doesn't have an IRA because he worked hard and just put his money in a savings account. The corporate guy who maybe moved in, he had participated in a 401k program,
gotcha,
has an IRA, let's say 400,000, which allows him to earn another 20, to withdraw another 20,000.
okay,
So his purchasing power or spending power is way above 80,000, but these 400,000 don't count. So he still qualifies for the program, yeah.
program,
Doesn't make sense. Sorry, as a physicist, I say this does not make sense and I'd like to fix it.
okay,
Well, and it doesn't, like you said, it shouldn't matter so much the characterization of your savings.
Yeah, where it
You know,
is.
it's great for people who had the ability to have an IRA,
Mhm.
but then there are a lot of self-employed people who have historically not had those. I know there's new legislation allowing self-employed people to set something like that up, but I think that's only been in place a year or two.
Yeah.
But right, that does seem like a significant concern in the rules of the current program.
So I think the program should measure your spending power, and that's what you call do with withdrawal. It's an easy fix.
To change.
And if you
the
find it
formula.
reasonable
okay,
and I'm available to help push this. I'm
Okay.
retired, I can make time.
you can make time, okay,
So Georg is on the town's budget committee and he's pending appointment to the county budget committee if they ever have a quorum, so that, or some other fix.
we have a bill to fix that.
Oh, it's been proposed?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that would be good because this is
yeah, I know,
a ridiculous situation.
it is,
Yeah,
yes,
but the whole county piece is a significant thing as we,
right,
look at our pie chart of how much, where our money goes that we raise in property taxes. Because the voters of St. George get to vote at the town meeting, on what we're gonna spend on the town. And we get to vote on what we're gonna spend on the school, but we have no control whatsoever of what we owe the county. And,
Jane,
yes, you
Yeah.
do.
just to make my thing formally
sorry.
correct, I would like to hand this over.
Oh, thank you very much,
That's a policy
appreciate that,
brief.
yes,
And I want to give one to you.
All right.
Perfect.
Is this the one I got by
Yes.
email? Okay.
Just,
Perfect.
it's you write
Yeah.
the memo.
You do, because technically, you have a county commissioner who
Right.
represents this area, that's Ed Glazer.
Right.
Who's supposed to, I was on the budget committee for 10 years. I represented this town and other towns on the budget committee. So you do have representation, and there is a vote on that, not
Not by the voter.
by the
Right.
voters. The budget committee takes the vote, and then it passes it over to the commissioners, and they vote on it.
Right.
And if they don't agree, then the budget committee wins, actually.
So we'll be, yes, I was very fascinated when I learned that
Mhm.
on the select board, that the budget committee could predominate over elected officials. That
Yeah.
seems,
Well, the budget committee is actually elected.
okay. So
Yeah.
those people get elected too
Yes, they do.
by the voters.
Yes.
Okay, so Georg will be our representative once he gets on there. We'll
Okay.
be counting on you to,
I'll bet you
Both
vote.
sides. My
Yes.
name is George.
There you go. So yes, I was on the budget committee for 10 years, so I know a lot about this. So you were asking about how the county budget is calculated? Or did you?
no, well, I mean, I think, again, that's calculated again based on our overall valuation.
Right, on the state valuation, yeah.
And our population goes into the math, right? Does that count into the? math?
I don't
No,
believe
it's just
so.
our valuation.
It's just valuation.
And then it gets divided up by the 16 towns in
Yep.
Knox County.
Yep.
And.
Yep.
Then we're obligated to pay whatever the
Right.
formula spits out.
Yes, there was, I think the PSAP, the dispatch fee is separate, so
Right,
there's
right.
that also, but yes. Based on population, I don't know whether I don't believe that's based on population. I know that it's valuation that determines the county budget. Your your county tax. So, yeah.
Yeah, and we have the third highest valuation in Knox County after Camden and Rockport.
Okay,
So even though we're not a very big town,
mhm.
we don't. It doesn't feel like we use a lot of county services.
Yeah,
But, you know,
totally understood.
it's
I
13%
think
of our
our
budget.
county services, the like the calls into the sheriff's department or dispatch in general match the same percentage of our population.
That's what the
the-
sheriff said when he
Yeah,
came.
the
Yeah,
difference is that our valuation percentage is a much larger piece of the pie than
Right.
our
Mhm.
population is.
Right.
so we're paying more per person for the service that we get.
Correct.
Yeah, and the county government is a unique creature of the state. It's it was set up to do the state's work in the various counties.
You mean ages ago when they first established counties?
Yeah, like when they established counties when we left Massachusetts.
It's an English concept. I think it comes.
Well,
from
this,
English.
well, yeah, perhaps, but what I'm saying is that we have weak counties here.
It's very different from New York State where I
Other
used to live,
states, yeah.
where the counties had a lot more
Right.
power than the local.
Or
ones.
Cumberland County. I'm not sure about Penobscot, how active Penobscot County is, but some counties like Cumberland County have things like health service and assessing services and other regional programs that they provide. I think that it's time that the towns in Knox County, whether it's through MCOG or whether it's through the county government, should find a way to reduce the amount that they're paying for their assessing. I mean, each individual town in the county has an assessor or a part-time assessing agent. When the assessing isn't constrained by town lines, perhaps if we had an assessor that was for the whole county, that would relieve us of a lot of problems, especially around the last few years with towns not being able to get appropriate assessing services because they're so overwhelmed by 17 or 18 or 24 small municipalities who need their work. So there's not enough of them to go around. But having centralized programs like that, or some of the other programs that we might be able to come up with so that we don't rely on ourselves. I know that local control is a big thing, but it's expensive. It's very expensive. So
I'm not sure. I think that there are a lot of pros to a more regionalized approach, but I'm not sure that cost saving is one for a town like St. George. Because when we're paying a much higher percentage based on our valuation, anytime a service becomes regionalized and valuation is the metric being used, we're going to pay more than we use the service compared to our neighboring towns.
Compared to what you're paying right now?
I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say about a hypothetical bill, but typically that is the trend.
Because we're already paying a lot more per person.
For the
resident,
county, but
for the county.
how much are you paying for your assessing?
Right.
Yes. What would be the cost difference if you were to regionalize assessing as opposed to individual municipalities continuing on with that? That's what I'm getting at.
Well, I agree. I just think if it's absorbed at the county level, and the county were to now offer assessing service, I think there, like I said, there are a lot of pros to it. But by the time it all sort of shakes out in the math, I don't know that St. George would be saving money.
It might kind
Because
of
they're
break
gonna-
out the same,
Right.
to have our own versus to pay for.
It would be worth figuring it out. And it might not be the same for some of the different services that.
And that's just one of the things that we've been talking about at the task force is how can municipalities save themselves money? I know you sent me Audra Bell's essay, but also Steve Bowen from Rockport wrote an essay the week after. And while Audra seems to favor the state fixing the problem, Steve Bowen's favored municipalities working together to help mitigate the issues that they're facing. And the state doesn't have the capacity to do a lot of that stuff. I mean, it would be grand if we did, but going forward for the next several years, we're not going to have those kinds of funds available. So I think that municipalities need to work together to find a way to do some of those things. I know that McCog has a lot of things that they're doing. I know that we have GIS services in Knox County. No, not many other counties have GIS services, and those are very important. Those kinds of services are well worth investing in, and we should look at those kinds of services to see if we can help ourselves and also reduce the cost of doing business. I never disparage what municipalities do, because I know that once upon a time, municipalities used to be tax collector was in their kitchen. The road commissioner had his own plow. So that's how you got things done around here, was the volunteer services and the modest stipends that you pay people to do the work. And then over the years, even since I've been here 35 years or so, the demands on municipalities have increased exponentially. So now they're being asked to do so many different things, in addition to getting out that snowplow first thing in the morning and going through twice so that nobody slips and slides on the road, getting to work or when the kids get to school or anything like that. Or being able to come in here and, pay your taxes and get an electronic receipt rather than having something handwritten out. And a lot of the other services that are here, we pay for what we want. And it's tough when we want these services because they're so damn expensive now. It's the people that work in the town office who I absolutely adore and think they do a splendid job. But everywhere around the state, it's personnel costs that are so tough to find the right person. I mean, you could never replace Patty Sinclair. So yeah, we wouldn't even want to try. But it's really tough to have the right people here. and to provide the services without breaking the bank. I mean, it's
Well, and
really
health
good.
insurance, all the other costs
Yes,
that are,
That's part of
that are,
personnel.
again,
sure,
over which we have very little, if any, control.
right,
So,
right,
right, you want to pay people
yeah.
a fair
Can
rate.
can I
Oh,
jump
yeah.
in just real quick, while I have a chance? And again, I appreciate your being here and, doing that overview. And I couldn't agree with you more about what we need to do at a municipality level. I was wanting to address a small thing that's come up, but I think it affects us a good bit. And that's we've been looking into a TIF district.
Okay,
And every time we do the math laid out by the formulas that the state has put together, almost the vast majority of the money we might recover with increase in assessments in a TIF has to go to a school, but we don't qualify. And the question is, then we lose out in terms of a municipality as a town compared to many others. I mean, you run into towns that have numbers of TIFs. I've been surprised to find that. And so they're getting highly supplemented on their schools, which again works for them because they can save it in other ways. But because we don't have a school that qualifies, we only would get a tiny amount.
Yeah,
And
so
raises a
we-
concern.
we contracted with MCOG to help us
Okay.
figure out if it made sense for us to have an economic development tax increment finance program here. With the idea that it would benefit, we capture tax dollars
mm-hmm,
and then be able to spend those on, economic development in Port Clyde and Tennants Harbor villages.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
the notion. And in particular, if we could also spend some of it on infrastructure spending to compensate for sea level rise problems. And the initial projections before people really looked at the specifics were that, we'd be able to have this great benefit by
Mhm.
doing this before we have a valuation and property values go up.
mm-hmm.
But what,
Yeah, perhaps up to 40% was the numbers that we were talking about.
but what Van is saying is that the tax benefit that most municipalities get by doing a TIF is that the money that you capture, this part of the savings is essentially money that goes for education.
No,
Yeah,
Well,
and
this
that must have been set in place when they originally laid it out. And the question was, why? Was it money safer put towards schools?
no, that's not the way. No, I've been dealing with TIFs for 20 years. I
Yeah.
still deal with TIFs up at the state. What happens is that your educational spending gets protected, gets shielded, so that you don't, there's not an increased cost for that. It's not part of the formula. So that, it's not that you have to spend it on education. The formula for education, requires certain amount of spending and so forth. But if you have a TIF, you can shield that from the funding aspects of it. I need to, I don't have any idea where you got that idea, but
So
no.
this is something we should talk about separately rather than with the
Yeah.
whole group.
Yeah, we should do that separately. I agree.
Because we have talked to Tina Mullins at
Okay.
the state, who's the queen of TIFs. We'll call
At
her.
the state?
Yeah, at the state. And MCOG, after their initial projections, once they looked at our math, they said, this wasn't likely to be as beneficial as we had hoped. But I don't think we should give up on it yet.
Okay.
But this is definitely something that we would appreciate your input on.
Okay.
Going
Yes.
forward, but it probably doesn't make sense in this setting, to get too deep in the weeds on that.
Well, I won't. So let me go up and ask the folks at,
Yeah,
The
why don't I just make it a point to try and have a chat with Ann at some point here in the near future. We'll see what we can
Okay,
do.
Great. Yeah, because Van is the chair of our ad hoc TIF committee. And Aaron Dent, who's our Island Institute fellow here at the end, serving as our recording secretary tonight. They and I earlier have been the ones in touch with the state and with Max, so from MCOG. So we'll be happy to get your input on this. Maybe
Okay.
we've somewhere along the way misinterpreted something, and that would be great if that's true.
Yeah, because
So-
because what a TIF does is at some point you sort of freeze the valuation
Right.
of the property that's within the TIF.
Right.
Right.
So while the value still continues to go up, it's not reflected in your education funding
Right.
formula. So that's where you get help on your education. But you don't need to spend money on education to have a TIF.
No, I know, but somehow,
Okay, I'll ask.
yeah.
I'll
So
ask.
Georg,
I think it's been a few months, so I might not recall it correctly, but talking to Mike Felton, I think to recall that he said the town is just too rich to get money from the TIF program for the school. So forget the savings on the school.
right,
taxes.
that's where we were.
And the
we've been
second
told.
source was our assessment. We had hoped that while we do the revaluation,
Mhm.
property values goes up. But I understand a property increase by revaluating does not count.
Right,
The state takes the value that it believes in, and that
Mhm.
doesn't change simply because we do a revaluation. So we didn't see much of an increase.
Right.
We would really have to develop something where the state says, oh, yes, you developed that area, that has increased, and this we could capture.
right,
And since
Right.
we
That's
didn't
correct.
see that,
Right.
we stopped.
right.
Right, and so it may be that all of this education we're getting about TIFs doesn't turn into something today,
Okay,
but at some point in the future, if, somebody's gonna develop some new economic industry in
Mhm.
town or business
yeah,
that would make it worth
Yeah.
doing, at least we'd have this foundation of expertise, but
yeah,
but Van will connect with you to
okay,
get more information about that.
okay,
But that's another tax related
Okay.
wrinkle
yeah.
that we wanted to talk about. Do other people have questions?
I think Greg.
Greg?
Hi there. Thanks, Anne, for working on this for us and for being here tonight. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I was curious, you had shared some information on several of the existing programs, but I'm curious if through the task force there, if you guys have talked about any ideas for any new programs that could maybe fill a different need or replace some of the other programs that may not be as useful. Is there any ideas or anything new being discussed in the task force?
I don't think so. I think we have several successful programs, and I think the idea is to not reinvent the wheel, but to improve the programs we have in place because they are working. And we just need to increase the benefits and ensure that more people apply for these programs and so forth. I don't think that there's anything new that I've heard of coming out. I do know that people are very interested in what we have and fixing those sorts of things and talking about property taxes in general, but I don't believe there's any new programs that I remember hearing about.
All right, well, thank you very much for coming.
Oh,
We
you're most
really
welcome.
appreciate this. I think it's helpful for us to understand, for everybody in town to understand where our taxes go
Yeah,
and how, how we're gonna pay for things that we want to do here. So.
Yes.
um,
yes.
And we are working with South Thomaston.
Mhm.
Our resilience committee is
Yep.
working with them and we do a lot of emergency services stuff
Mhm.
with them.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I think, this is definitely a town that is interested in trying to solve problems with
Mhm.
neighboring towns when we can.
Yeah, I know that, yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. Feel free to stay or not. as you
Okay.
wish.
Thanks.
So the next item on our agenda is, we did set the date for the town meeting at our last, well, 2 meetings ago. And, we set it at May 11th, and that is the day of the elections at the polls, but the town meeting is Tuesday night, the 12th. So, we need to correct that date. So I'll make a motion that our town meeting for 2026 will be on May 12th at 7 PM.
Second.
All in favor? Do people, does it make sense to talk now about whether it would be in this building versus the school? I'd like to have it come back here if we don't. I mean, the year they moved it to the auditorium at the school was the year we voted on the ambulance incorporation. I think that was done because we thought there were gonna be so many people turn out. But usually it's not more people than would fit in the big room upstairs.
I like to believe that someday it will be though.
But do you like having that?
Aspirational.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine. Whatever you want. That's good. All right.
I think we need to offer refreshments. It's always a good draw.
But having it at the
School
school,
town meetings with
yeah, having it at the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
coffee, pie.
I like the idea of the two organizations, as it were, working together as the town as a whole, rather than,
Being in the school.
yeah, being in the
Yeah.
school. I think that's
Has
a
a
nice idea.
symbolic value.
The town, our town attorney told me that in many towns that he represents, the votes,
Yes,
the votes on the town's budget and the school's budget are the same night. They're first one, then the other.
mhm.
And I think that would be, we definitely would have more people and more people understanding, you know,
Where
Right.
their
where their dollars go
Mhm.
if we were all at the same meeting. And I think that's something we should think about for the future.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
We need to work with the school board on some other issues first. I guess we need to get through those, but then maybe we could talk to him about that. Brandon, do you want to talk about the Snows Point Lodge, estimate you have and fundraising thoughts?
Sure, yeah, we have a contractor who is beginning work at Snow Point Lodge either this week or next. The quote that I got back for some very preliminary renovations, so soffits outside, venting the bridge and the roof, hanging up insulation, which we already have the materials for, pine boards for the ceiling, and then putting down flooring, came in at $66,000. And we don't have that available. We have somewhere in the ballpark of 37,000 available right now. And so he's going to start and know that at some point we'll have to press pause on the project.
And that
Or raise
doesn't,
money.
that doesn't include the heat, right?
Right. That just includes what I named. And so, some other pretty immediate jobs that we need done are some electrical, we need to put some lighting above. They had sort of ceiling fans that were plugged into these outlets up above there. It's all right. It's not great. And if it's open now, we should do the work. And so that will need to be done before he can get too far on the project. And then, I still need to get a quote on, putting heat pumps into the building.
What would cover the insulation? I'm assuming you're talking wall insulation and roof.
Ceiling. Roof and
Yes, the
ceiling.
ceiling.
Yeah, so that's what the pine boards
They
are
would, boards would cover it.
Mhm.
That sounds great.
Mhm.
Rustic look.
Yeah, I think it will. And so,
But that doesn't sound unreasonable for the amount of work involved.
no, it's not. I mean, it's certainly a lot of money, but it's a lot of materials and labor as well. And both of those costs are, continue to go up. So,
But you were thinking with the electrical and heat pump, and I'm sorry, did you say the bathrooms when you were listing what he's doing or not?
no.
So
Overall, we
To go a
need to
little
be, in the $100,000 ballpark that was originally outlined for us before the town accepted the donation. And so, this is nothing that we weren't expecting. We were told this from the beginning. And so we are, last year there was a winter dance at the Oddfellows Hall that was a fundraiser for St. George Days. We'll run that dance again this year. The Parks and Rec Committee is going to take the lead on organizing that, and it will be a fundraiser for Snows Point Lodge. It is not a big fundraiser that's going to get us all that much closer to our target, but it is an opportunity to re-engage the community, remind them that this project's happening and that we've started some work and help bring more people into what's going on and what's available. When there's requests like more senior programming and ideally a community center for it, letting folks know that, well, we've got a place that could serve really well and offer a little bit different of an environment than the big room in the town hall. So that will be Friday, February 13th. And
yes, plan to come to the dance on Friday, February 13th.
Friday the 13th.
I think that starts.
I believe the committee said 6 to 10, which I was.
Yeah, but then,
Wow.
Yeah. I looked at what it was last year and it was 5 to 9.
That makes more sense.
So I think it'll be 5 to 9. Give it, Mainers go to bed early, get up early.
That was a fun time.
It was fun. So that's one kind of the next fundraising for that. But I think that we will be seeing more fundraising, and Brandon will let us all know how we can help with that, because it'll be a valuable community asset, I think, when it's
Maybe getting a story in the local papers could help too.
right.
Raise awareness. Pictures.
Right. And a list of things that could be done in there once it's up and running. Another thing that I wanted us to talk about was we floated the idea not long ago, in the conversations that the folks had at the planning board about the new coffee shop that's going to be in the old Cod End building that was also Luke's Lobster. There were discussions about the limited parking in the village of Tennant's Harbor, and we all know that most of the spots on the landing now are used by fishermen and some parking on Commercial Street. So there aren't a lot of parking spots for the public. And I wanted to ask the group what you all think about the possibility of creating a gravel parking lot on that town-owned lot where we thought the library would be built before the current building was acquired. And we could still have that buoy structure there and maybe some benches for people to sit, facing Main Street if they want to take a sandwich over there from the general store or watch a parade or something. But if it were possible to have a number of parking spots in the village, would that be a better use of that lot that the town owns than just having it be grass the way it is now with nothing much happening there? What do people think?
How many spaces do you think you would get from that lot?
I mean, it depends how much you wanted to reserve for hedges and benches and, a buoy structure. But, I think that you're probably looking at like anywhere in like 12 to 18 spaces.
Really?
Wow.
Really?
I think so.
Wow.
I
I mean, it goes all the way up from the sidewalk up to the shed on Juniper Street.
Hmm.
Yeah. Who owns the lot on the other side across from the Bowie Park? I'll call it.
47, that's a parking lot for 47 Main Street.
Okay, because that's often
Hmm.
empty.
I know, and I mean, that's another thing we could talk to them about, whether they're willing to have the public
Well,
use that, but
The board or corporation for the coffee shop is already talking to them. That's already occurred.
Okay.
So I think there will be some parking there. But I guess one thing I'm concerned about is we gave our permission for the buoy tree. I'd hate to have like people knocking it over, like parking. I mean, I don't see how that many spaces could be there. I mean, maybe, you're right, it goes up to that shed, but would you have a rectangular lot with parking on both sides, or would there only be parking that people would back out into the street?
Well, I was imagining a rectangular lot with,
Mm.
well, I wasn't imagining it. I looked at it to see if we maximized the parking
Mm.
here, how many could we get?
Mm.
And that did not really leave room for hedges
Benches
and
and-
benches.
Mm.
You know, it's just a very industrial gravel parking lot.
Mm.
But I think it would be nice to not have it just be like the one across the way, have some buffer from the street, but.
Yeah,
all
but
of
then
these are,
it's more expensive for less parking. And so, you know, I think
Hmm.
it would really come down to, I think, what the community wanted out of the space.
Is this parking that would be needed for events down at Cod End or just for the coffee shop?
for anybody, for everything.
Yeah, I want to be
The
really clear
fishermen-
that I don't think that this should be done in response to a
No.
new business going in.
All right.
There's been a long-standing parking problem at the public landing. Currently,
Yeah.
as the
Yep.
co-op's numbers have increased,
Mhm.
you know, year over year. Many of the sternmen, they can't park at Cod End, and so they park on the public landing, and so it's tied up all day long. And right now it is, you know, free public parking, and so there's no real mechanism to say that you can't do that. And so if we were able to offer municipal parking in the village, we could, you know, put a time restriction on the parking on
The
public
landing,
landing to try to keep it more to day use. I've
4
asked-
hours or something like we have.
I've asked the harbor committee when they meet next to at least have that conversation in terms of, you know, what they recommend. The hard part is, you know, if it's 4 hours and somebody's going out recreationally, that can be too constricting for them as well. And so,
I thought that the sternmen weren't parking on the public landing. I thought they were parking in different places and getting picked up by their captains and. being
those are the
brought to
ones
Cod
that
End.
that can't find a spot on the public landing.
Okay.
There are fishermen from the co-op parking on the public landing
Okay.
every day.
Okay.
Maybe
And
not
on
this
the
time of
street.
year, but yes, and on the street.
Okay.
I had a thought which is a little contrary to this, and that is, it's kind of a beauty spot. Like it could be a very pretty little park, and we don't really have any parks in Tennis Harbor Village as such. I mean, you can walk out past the library to the marsh, and that's a nice little trail there. So it's just, I guess my thought is, let's think, you know, do we really want to look at more parked cars in the middle of the village? I do acknowledge the need for, you know, places to park. Somehow our Tennis Harbor store survives with essentially no parking, but it manages to continue. And, you know, we're in a village that dates from horse and buggy days, so that's why there's no parking downtown.
It's more money up front, obviously, but
I
Waterville.
wasn't quite
Oh,
done.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm almost done. I was just going to say this might be a great topic for the Open Space Committee to take up, our new committee to talk about. Where does this fit into open space and in our community? That's
I don't
all I
know.
wanted to say.
I don't know that parking is a consideration for an open space plan. That I don't think that that's part of
I
the.
think
That
he's
is an
saying
open
making
space.
a
That,
park.
that it's currently
You
an
wanna-
open space and maybe it
It's
should be
not
a
a
nice.
parking lot now. It is
Right.
open space.
Right, so if you wanted to conserve the space is what you're saying?
Right,
Yeah.
I see.
that's what he's saying.
Waterville felt like they had a parking problem that couldn't be solved, and they hired a parking engineer. Again, Waterville's bigger than St. George, this may not be feasible for us, but what they determined was that Waterville had plenty of parking and they were able to actually develop on a gravel parking lot that they had by changing how the parking is utilized. I think they had many more parking options available that allowed them to utilize it differently, than we do, but that is also another route. I don't know that any of us are.
Because we don't, you can't, unlike Camden, for example, you can't park on the street. There's really nowhere to park other than right in front of a business that has a few spots. And I think about Jan Lipson saying that the Squid Ink had the most people ever this year because of the parking at the Port Clyde Landing. That in the past, people used to go down there and want to stay and there was no place to park, so they left. And, if we want there to be businesses in Tennant's Harbor, there have to be places for people to park. And, it's a complicated thing, but there sits that lot, not a park really, just has the buoy thing. And I think there are a couple of picnic tables.
There are picnic.
The only thing that really gets used for is when the bouncy house goes up on St. George days, which could obviously be at the school instead, potentially. So I just wanted to,
If nothing else, it does raise the point that maybe we should do some community engagement to see how to utilize that spot. I don't
Right.
think that anyone would argue that we're best utilizing it right now. And the community might tell us they want it to be a park or they want it to be a parking lot, and then we can go from there.
The town's lot right here around this building, that is open to the public, right?
Yeah.
Anyone could park there.
Yep.
And we don't have any signs saying that, but we could have a sign that says public parking and points up the road.
it's not
That's cool.
as close as it might be for fishermen, for example.
Right.
We do have fishermen that park up here and then get a ride down,
Yeah.
from their captain or whoever, but
Nobody wants to walk.
we rarely have a parking shortage here in this lot. And there's normally, 15 or more open spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every day, so.
Well, that's to be continued, I guess. So why don't you help us project out where we are with the budget development for this year, and we'll make sure we are all aware of when our budget meetings and workshops are with the budget committee.
Yep, my draft is just about done. I need to hand a copy over to Irene so that she can calculate some benefit projections. And then we'll begin meeting with the budget committee next week?
This Thursday,
This week, so Thursday.
3 Thursdays in a row,
Yeah.
if we need all three.
And then it should be coming to the select board after that, correct?
Yep.
So about a month out before it should be before you all to review.
All right.
Susie, the budgets are.
Yes. Thanks.
Standing in the footsteps of this one.
Right.
A lot of expertise sitting right there.
Here we go. That's right. So your report.
We are, I can't remember if I shared this at a past meeting or not. We are hiring an attendant at the transfer station. Dave Wall is getting done. He's staying on. He's using up a lot of his time off and filling in sort of periodically so that Ben and Rob are able to keep their half-day shifts and then use time off when they need to as well. And so that the job is currently posted and will be until the end of the month. Then we'll be doing some interviews. So please feel free to share it with anyone that you think may be a good candidate. We've been sort of piloting a new approach to sidewalk snow removal. Tim Hoppy has a Bobcat machine that has a snow blower attachment on the front. And we've worked out an arrangement with him to try it before we have to buy it. Which we may not have to, but we were getting a lot of requests for improved snow clearance from the sidewalk. Our system currently is, walk behind snow blower that is effective when the snow is light and powdery and not really effective to push all around Tennant Harbor and Port Clyde when the snow gets heavier. So it's a lot for one person, considering Steve is also usually out plowing and sanding and salting the night before. And so we felt like we needed to figure out a better solution. So I'm not sure if we will pursue one of these machines or not, but over the last couple of storms, I have received some emails from folks who were happy to see the improvement on the sidewalks. And then I've got a meeting with the group of Mid-Coast managers this Friday, where we will have a presentation on some of the current state legislature, and so I'll report back at our next meeting.
Is that it?
That's mostly it, yes.
Okay, thank you. Committee reports, the planning board.
It has not met. It will meet tomorrow night at 7:00.
The Board of Appeals
It's not met.
doesn't have any appeal. You resolved something that maybe was gonna turn into an appeal.
Yes,
Okay,
that
so
was resolved.
no appeals. The Harbor Committee,
They met on the 17th. I don't know if I reported on that. We haven't, right? We've
No.
done, no, so,
well, we just had that short meeting on the,
right, they talked a little bit about Josiah Wilson's letter.
okay,
Basically decided that that would fall on administration. Unless they are specifically asked by us to come up with some ideas.
Which I believe was the ask that the Harbor Committee was asked for their recommendation on it. If they don't have a recommendation, that can be fine,
I
but.
don't believe they understood that.
Okay.
And I didn't know that that was the ask. I assumed that was the ask, but it didn't seem like they thought it was, so they kind of decided that it would, just you and Ryan are gonna be discussing what happened this season and whether or not the fees are gonna stick or get changed, or I know there was some support on the committee for having a lower fee for residents like Josiah instead of, the people that are out of town, or maybe not out of town, but Mohegan or whatever. They did a report from Ryan, he talked about what people want to see down there, the benches in the green space, information kiosk, which I think is up or going up. The fixing the winch, which apparently wasn't working very well, which was one of Josiah's problems. And they talked a little bit about the new harbor master boat that is coming in June,
hooray.
and they didn't schedule another meeting, so.
Since then, I've met with Dave Szymanski, whose approach currently is to only call a meeting when it's needed based on how frequently they met over the last couple of years. And so I put Tennant Harbor parking sort of on his radar and said, when you all move next, we'd like your recommendation on this, that you all would like the recommendation on it, being an advisory committee to the board. And then the other piece that I had put on his radar is a conversation around, whether or not we want to try to pursue any public access via the river, knowing that we have access in Tennant Harbor and Port Clyde, but nothing on the river. So if I was a recreational boater on Walston Road and I wanted to put my boat in the river to sit down to Port Clyde, I'd have to drive to Port Clyde to do it. And so, it would really just help sort of finalize, I think, a pretty comprehensive approach to the water for the peninsula. There was a feasibility study done, I think, back in 2007, which I just discovered thanks to Dave. The hard part is that the river is essentially all private property. And a lot of it, either is a lot of mud, and very tidal dependent, and where the water is deep, it's a lot of very steep banks that it'd be hard to ever build a launch on. And so, essentially, they're gonna revisit that study, and see if there are any locations that, could be feasible, and then just sort of have the conversation about whether or not this is something that the town should pursue or continue to sort of keep on its radar as property maybe transitions owners and.
So I see that Ken Olberger is on Zoom and Steve is the liaison to the Open Space Committee. And I think that committee also is looking at public access to the water, including the possibility of access on the river. So it would be useful to make sure we all on the same page. I don't know why I'm echoing.
It's unmuted.
Ken, did you have any thoughts on that?
No, I guess the key thing on that was that we did highlight that as one of the items that the Open Space Committee should look into as part of their overall assessment of open space in town.
Well, I know, and Janine O'Brien is on that committee and I see she's on Zoom. I know that there are some members of the committee, including Janine, who, when they expressed interest in being part of the process, were particularly interested in water access as part of open space. So I'm just saying this out loud so that, we don't have duplication of effort or working against each other. I mean, I think most of us would think it was a great idea if there were some way the public could put a boat in to the river somewhere in St. George.
Well, I guess I think if the Open Space Committee, if Sue got in touch with the Harbor Committee on that aspect of it and cooperated on and go back and look at what was done in 2007 as a starting point, it might make it easier for everyone.
And the state owns Fort Point, so it's not an option for something there, or is it?
Well, I don't think it's not really an option in terms of getting any boats down there across the town property.
Right. So we'd have to carry it half a mile.
Canoes.
Right.
Canoes and kayaks, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's certainly.
There's a good ramp in Thomaston. You could start there.
Yeah, right. Or you could start in Port Clyde, but nowhere in between. The budget committee's meeting on Thursday, so we know that. The cemetery committee, I did want to say that when we had our final meeting of the comprehensive plan committee celebrating their finishing up their work, Leticia Van Buren, who's our GIS specialist for Knox County and lives in St. George, mentioned to me that her passion is cemeteries and cemetery mapping, and that as part of her job for Knox County, she can provide cemetery mapping support to our town, which I had not previously been aware of. And so I passed that along to Tammy and Patty St. Clair, because and Dawn, or the sexton, because that is something that's been on their agenda to take on. So that was a good example you gave of a county service that I didn't even know was a service that we should be availing ourselves of.
Dawn was very excited about that.
Yeah.
Their next meeting, the cemetery committee is February 4th, 4:30 here up in the big room, and the green burial people are going to be coming to this meeting to do a presentation. They weren't able to come on January 7th because of illness and other things going on. So they had to
Weather
cancel.
too.
Good. Were you able to attend that emergency services committee meeting? I was not.
Was not Ryan did though.
Okay, so we'll have to provide you with an update once we know more about what happened at that. You weren't there, Brian, right?
Maybe.
No, okay, yeah.
Yeah, they talked about the, equipment that's available, and how to utilize neighbor to neighbor to get to the equipment or get the equipment to them. And
By
talked about-
equipment, you mean like walkers and
Yes.
wheelchairs and stuff.
And then they reviewed the capital improvement plan for the emergent, so for fire and EMS. As a follow-up from that, Ryan met with the water district around the feasibility of a water tower, and whether or not that is something that could happen. And essentially, it's not. You'd have to overhaul the whole system. They are not set up to handle that. A water tower would allow hydrants, et cetera, but it does not seem like something that is feasible for St. George.
So you heard some about the TIP committee, and we are still investigating that to make sure that we have accurate information about what the benefit would be if we were to pursue this. So we're going to keep working on that. The comprehensive planning committee is now finished, although John Malte and Aaron will make a presentation to the select board and all the committee chairs about the tool that Aaron created. That's an Excel spreadsheet that will enable all of us to make sure that we are keeping track of the responsibilities with which we're charged in the comprehensive plan. So if you're on the harbor committee, you're going to be able to see what your list is of things that you should be paying attention to, or the Conservation Commission or the select board, to keep us all on track. And it's wonderful that Aaron will be around for a while, that hopefully we can all develop good habits at, really rolling up our sleeves and accomplishing the goals we've set for ourselves in there. The Conservation Commission.
Okay, well, I see Ken is here. I was at the meeting. Maybe I'll just start and Ken can add anything he'd like to. Discussion of issues that have come up before at the Conservation Commission. They met on Thursday, January 8th, here, and talked about final things with land trust coordination on the Old Woods Farm, and update on trails and events and education, discussion of the emerald ash borer, and we just don't know whether that'll show up at some point here, but it seems likely that it will. I did see that they just cut down a bunch of ash trees in Gardner, which isn't that far away. But I don't think they were diseased. They just did it as a preemptive move. There's that, I think I've mentioned this before, that cool interactive map that where you can look at the different conserved lands, protected lands in the town.
They cut down their ash trees because they were worried about losing their ash trees.
Maybe I should revisit the article, but it was something like that. I don't know.
I think when I read that article, it sounded like they had some branches that had been falling off of those trees that had some different disease, and they were concerned about the safety issues related to it. And they just, so it could have been preemptive as well, but that's the key thing we're concerned about on the Fort Point Trail with the abundance of ash trees there, and that the emerald ash borer is closing in from both sides of St. George. It's been found in Pittsburgh and Belfast at this point, and we know that Camden has started a program to inoculate some trees, and we're going to hopefully present to the select board our plan for starting that process sometime in February. We do have, and Brandon, you have a form I sent to you from the state the state said they would inoculate a dozen trees as part of a pilot program. So that will do two things. One, it'll give us some more information and we'll be able to work off of their expertise as well as reduce the cost to the town for inoculating a number of trees near the trail.
So they'll do a dozen trees in St. George?
Yeah,
The
they'll do a
state-
dozen. The state came down and they identified a dozen trees along the 4-Point Trail. We had identified approximately 50 trees that we wanted to take care of that would be near the trail, and then we would hopefully have an ongoing program for that. And that's what we would like to present to the select board sometime in February.
Right. Thanks for enlightening us on that and chiming in. Was there anything else that you think we
Well,
should
I
mention?
just think the key thing that's happened since the last month's report was that on Old Woods Farm, we did close with LMF and received the funding on the grant from the state on that, which is a big step. And we also completed the easement on the property with GRLT. So that portion completed. And we talked with Laura Graham recently about there were two things that were potential additional funding from LMF. One was what they call the stewardship grant, and the other, which was a access improvement grant. And once we looked at those, they're not a lot of money. It's 5% of what the property value was, which was the $74,000. So we could get $3,700. After looking at the stewardship grant, it's just too onerous to even think about the amount of work that's be required to get $3,700. And the access improvement grant, we have 12 months to apply for that money if we find a particular project we want to do on the property at this point. So we're going to hold off on that and determine whether there's something that's appropriate to apply for.
One other thing that hopefully won't be a continuing problem that Lorene Meyer brought up as a resident out there was parking. And there is a designated parking area, and people are driving past that and parking at the trailhead where they're not supposed to park. And I guess there were some folks that weren't particularly polite about it when they were told that they were supposed to park in the lot. So I don't know if signage would help, or it's just one of those things that we have to, hopefully most people will park in the right spot.
Yeah, I guess the two issues there was they were parking in the emergency vehicle turnaround area, and they were also blocking, an individual's driveway.
Yeah,
right. So after talking to Brandon, and we looked at the parking signs that they put in Port Clyde at the landing, and we're proposing we put in similar signs that said cars would be towed, and we would get a sign from Automaster where the people, if we decide to have someone's car towed, they'd go to Automaster and pay to get their vehicle back.
Well, it's important to make sure people are not blocking driveways or the emergency turnaround, so
Yeah.
that makes sense.
The other thing I suggested
Right.
was that we put a parking lot by the trailhead.
But did we have an agreement to do that with the homeowners association, or would that require
Well,
different?
it wasn't in the original plan, obviously, but if I was a homeowner whose driveway was getting blocked, I would probably prefer a parking lot over that.
Yeah, we rejected that idea because it was way back in the woods, and we felt there was some issues with other things going on back there that we would like to have more exposure to where people were parking.
But you're
Well-
right, Brandon. I mean, most places where trailheads have the parking right there in other sites, but this is kind of an unusual setup.
But I guess it shouldn't be possible to drive down there if you're not supposed to drive down there and park there, right?
What do you mean?
Well, since I haven't been as far down as where you're talking about, I
Well,
don't.
people live along that road, so.
No, I know,
Yeah.
but to go all the way to the trailhead and park.
Well, there's houses all the way down.
There's a house.
There's be no way to
trailer.
restrict traffic. I mean, you could put
At
up
the
like
very end.
you could put up like a gate with a key code, or you know.
Now
I would hate that.
I'm not suggesting that as a good.
So,
Yeah,
Lorraine, did you?
I think what we could
Can
try
I,
this.
can I just expand a little bit? Part of the issue with parking down there is it's in the wellhead protection zone. And there was concern about vehicle leakage as well. I mean, there's a lot of homeowner concern, and I don't think you'll get the HOA to agree to it. But the issue also is that's wellhead as well as wetland areas, and the concern was contamination.
Well, it sounds like signs that really convey the reasons for not allowing this are important. And then if we tell some people will get the message, right?
Right. And when I talked to Ryan, he said they gave some people warnings on their first offense and then they didn't have a problem after that.
Hopefully it'll clear up. And I was also thinking about the Clark Island Preserve, people walk quite a distance
Right.
there. So it's not crazy to ask people to walk
Right.
a ways from the parking lot. Anyway, congratulations on that, Ken.
Yeah, and
The town does not have a parking enforcement officer
Right.
though. Like, I just want to be very clear about that. We had a hard enough time with Brian doing it at the public landing. I don't have anyone that I can send out to conservation trailheads to, give parking warnings to.
Yeah. I think mostly we have to depend on goodwill. People.
Well, if you publish a phone number where you can pick up your car when you parked it illegally, that's that you really mean it.
right, that's right.
Yeah, that's on the signs that are in Port Clyde. I seem to be having a problem with my Zoom connection. I hope people can still hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
I mean, loud and clear.
All right, well, let us know if you need something further from us about that. The Shellfish Committee.
The Shellfish Committee meets January 20th at 5:30 at the town office in Warren.
Okay, solid waste.
The Solid Waste Committee meets tomorrow here at the town office, up in the big room at 3 p.m.
Parks and Rec.
They meet tomorrow at 6.
Right. And they'll be working on the dance, no doubt.
That's the first I've heard of it, but yeah. Sure. They will get right on it.
The Resilience Committee.
There's a meeting tomorrow of the action team for the community resilience plan, and that's in South Thomaston at 4:00. There's also an action team meeting on January 27th. Location to be determined. There's another meeting on Wednesday, February 4th at 5:00 of both halves, both the road side of the grant and the resilient side. And yeah, people are active. Susie, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
February 4th meeting is actually South Thomaston and St. George.
Oh, okay.
But we're encouraging all of both committees to come.
Okay.
So currently our resilience committee, half of them are working on the Port Clyde roads. The other half are working on the community resilience plan, and everybody is encouraged to come. This is going to be a report from Amanda Dwelly, who works with MCOG, that will talk about social vulnerability. So it will speak to, it speaks to resilience in general.
Open space.
Open space is off and running. They're underway. I wasn't able to be at the December 17th meeting, but Erin was there and took great notes. So I have those. And you can mention if I miss anything, Erin, but six members showed up. not counting Aaron. And they reviewed a variety of ideas of what they should be looking at. Educating landowners on the benefits of putting property in open space. Even things as basic as defining what open space is for St. George. They've looked at plans from other places like Harpswell. Talking about easements, tree growth, mapping. That's certainly a high priority. Coordinating with the land trusts and defining easements, discussing how to protect open space, public involvement, messaging and getting the community informed about what they're doing. But I think the most important thing is that they're going to meet in a couple of days, right? Or on the 14th. And is that at 4:00, Aaron?
Mhm.
Right here, I think.
Yep, downstairs.
Aaron, have they yet defined what percentage of St. George they would like to see in conservation?
No, I don't think that's the determination they would make until after the public's involvement.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta ask the public, how important is this? One of the early.
The comp plan just did that right? They highlighted conservation as.
Yes, but
Maybe
not a
it's-
specific number. The questions in the comp plan survey were, do you agree with the state that we should move toward the state goal of 30% open space in the state of Maine
Mhm.
by 2030, which is pretty soon now. And people said yes, but that was not a question of, do you think 30% of St. George should be open space? It was more like,
Right.
and so what they're doing first is figuring out how much of St. George is already conserved in some way, and that's the interactive map that Steve was referring to,
Yeah.
that Stu Rich has worked on, but as I mentioned to Aaron after looking at it, we know from the comp plan that there was some stuff that didn't make it onto his map, so she's adding other properties to that. So first they need to know what's currently conserved, and then they'll do a public engagement survey to ask many more specific questions about, like water access on the river, if that's something they're gonna take on, or whatever other open space questions. And then there will be recommendations about what percentage and where.
I just like to say that it's a really motivated committee and the people seem really committed to making it work and making something good come out of it. And it's still a young committee. So they're just getting started, but
Yeah,
like other
I'm excited
committees in
to
town.
see their go so that we can make sure that we're communicating it well to the community. Like both tonight, parks and boat launches came up as things that could fall under open space when we have, dedicated departments
There's
of the town.
definitely some overlap here.
Well, I know that Aaron and Sue Merrow are working on a post in the town newsletter.
Okay.
Talk about an open space.
Perfect. The sound effects to go with open space. So there will be a post in the newsletter, and then I assume that won't be very long until there's some kind of public meeting for people to come and learn more about this, just like the forum that the Resilience Committee had. Because getting the public input, that's what it's all about. You're only going to be able to sell an open space plan if you can prove that this is what our community wanted. So,
I'm going through my papers because there actually is a spot on the state website that will tell you how much of the property in each individual municipality is untaxed. So it would be nonprofits and municipal and state and federal. So you,
And the growth areas, tree growth areas,
right,
things
tree
like
growth,
that.
tree growth areas and so forth, yeah.
I know where to find that actually. We put part of that in our comp plan as well, so.
You got it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She can tell you where it is, but yes, I actually had the printout of everything that was in the different communities, but I can't find it right quickly.
So it's good to know about all those resources so that we include everything before we say what in addition needs to come.
Right.
All right, follow-up items, I guess we need to be working on the dance, fundraising for Snows Point Lodge and having more information about how it'll be utilized and how much money we're hoping to raise. Brandon does have money in the budget for next year. So was money in the budget from last year, money in the budget from next year. There was money raised at the Adam Ezra concert and
Oh, yeah.
the dance coming up. But to get to 100 something, to have it be what we want it to be, we're gonna need to raise some more money.
We'll need a campaign.
That's right, we will need a campaign.
You think of how much money they raised for the makerspace, and I think this town can come up with it.
Yes, but that was Mike Felton banging that drum every day for
years.
several years. Yeah, who's gonna play that role for Snows Point Lodge? That's the question. So, and we'll get some input from the Harbor Committee about parking in the village of Tennant's Harbor, and it might be interesting to ask the Business Alliance if they have any thoughts about whether parking is needed. I mean, it's not a group that.
They don't usually weigh in on things like that, but knock your socks off.
Ask them.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll ask them.
Yeah. I did find my list about tax exempt properties. And in the town of St. George, I'm not sure how old this is. I'm sure it's not too old. But of the total $886 million evaluation, $41 million or 4.5% is in exempt property.
Or did you think it was?
Is that the percent of the value or acres?
No, that's the percentage of the town that.
Well, that's an older figure.
Include churches and.
Obviously, its valuation figure is about half, that's on like
Half of what.
half of what it is now.
Right.
But if it were acreage.
It's not acreage, it's the percentage of
It's a
land.
dollar
Yeah, percentage of valuation, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And number 1.4 billion.
Yes,
Yeah.
1.4
Yeah.
billion was the 2025 valuation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where we have no idea whether when KRT does our valuation, is it gonna be, how similar is it gonna be to what the state is just like guesstimating, you know? That will be very interesting to learn.
Mhm.
In your tasks, when you synthesizing events or things for senior citizens, you were
Yes,
talking about the town and the CDC, include the library in there.
yes, I was
There's a
thinking
lot
about the
of great
library,
programs
Oh, yeah.
at the library.
yes. And Parks and Rec. Yeah.
Impressive what the library puts on.
Yes, it
Mhm.
is.
So many good things.
And the CDC.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, then. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? That's everybody. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming in.
Mhm.
You're welcome.